Today we are going to talk about Zen Studio for Eclipse and just a bunch of tips and tricks. So we're going to be jumping all over the place today. It may not take a whole hour, but we're going to try and cover what we can. So the first thing I want to talk about is PHP Doc, and that is a way to document your code and a neat way to generate documentation as well. So we'll get right started. We're started right away, sorry. And what I'm going to do is, this is my debug demo PHP file. And we're going to use some of these functions. It'll also work, PHP Doc works quite well for object references. So I'll show you that being done in a little larger way later on. So to start a PHP Docs block, is you do a / 2 stars and press enter. What the editor immediately does is picks up anything it can from the following lines of code. So as you can see right away, it picks up that what it's returning. The return value is a string, and the parameter to this function is $I. To add any of the other different PHP Doc elements, just simply start with an @ symbol, and your list comes up of all these tags. So you can see there's lots of them here. Return value, it already picked that up. Any errors it might throw, a version number it's on. So I'm just going to throw in the author tag and put in my name. And anytime you push enter within this block, it will also increase the area for you, obviously, but within the same block. So you could put in a copyright 2011 PBM if you want to, something like that. Save the file, and now you have this documentation. Now, of course, there's the more of this you do, the more space it takes up. So as you can see on the left side here on line 20, there's a little collapsible item here. So you can collapse the doc stuff out of the way if you want to. Alternately, under Window Preferences, PHP, I think it's under Editor, Code Folding. There it is. So you can automatically fold that code if you want to, just to get it out of your way as you develop code. And open and close file. So if we say OK to that, and I close debug demo PHP, I open it again, this should have been folded. I wonder why it didn't. Let's try again. Window Preferences, Code Folding, Enable Folding, Initially Fold. Oh, I missed. I just clicked the wrong one. So we'll say OK. We'll try that again. Open debug, and there it is, initially folded. PHP Doc. If you hover over the expansion, it'll give you a pop-up window of the full amount of the context. And of course, you can open it up at any time if you want. So that's PHP Doc. It's a good idea for team programming to have something like this developed for all of your functions and classes. What I'm going to show here now is another example, which is just a simple class with a few items in it. So where did my other view go? There it is, the outline view. So I just had to reset my perspective here. So I've lost a few views, but we'll get those back later on when we start talking to them about them again. So Down here in my outline view is a class, and we can collapse and expand that. And we can see, jump around these files within the file, the methods within this class. So here, I better turn that off. Turn that back off. PHP Doc. I want to see them when I open them up. So here's a bigger one for an anchor tag method called anchor on, and here's a lot of the parameters that it's picked up. Another PHP Doc is the return value, and you can type any of these things in that you like. Now, what you want to do, additionally you can do, is once the once the documentation is all done, you can generate HTML or PDF type output. So what I'm going to show you here is just a second is how to generate this this code, so this output documentation. So there's two ways to do it. You can either right mouse on the project itself, and you'll see a item here called Generate PHP Doc, about 2/3 the way down the list. Another way to do it is go into the project menu and select the same thing, Generate PHP Doc. When you select that, you have a list of all the open projects that you're working on the left-hand side, and on the right, any code files that are listed within that project. So if we just want to do HTML class inc and the debug demo files, turn those into a documentation. I've set the destination to be just my desktop, so it's easier to find for this example. And you usually just pick the same output executable that's going to be used to run through the code and document it. When you click next, you get all these options on the different PHP doc outputs. I use it right now for this purpose. We're just going to look at the PDF output, and you can have lots of titles and so on. Documentation title, let's go PHP Doc example, and you can ignore any tags if you want to, and so on, but I'll just go ahead and click on finish with that. My console, my console will list the progress of anything that's going out, and it will tell me how long it's done, taken, and when it's done. So I send it to my desktop. Here it is, documentation PDF. I'll open that up, and you can see the list of items here. I'll make this. So PHP Doc example, that's the title I gave it when we sent it out. Here is a list of table of contents. I'll just zoom in a little bit on this so you can see. Maybe one more. There we go. And of course then there's different places where it shows up. So here's the debug demo PHP and its functions that are commented, and here's are the classes that are included. So you can click on the item itself and go to the detail. Here we can see, I'll just roll up a little bit. Here's the function definition, HTML anchor on, with the attributes, parameters that are being brought in. Here's the list of parameters, and it flows over to the next page, and here shows me my author. So this is all being brought in from that PHP, all those PHP doc tags, and reading through the code itself. So that's very handy for comments or documentation on your programming language, on your PHP work rather, that you know, if you're handing off to another team or so on, or a new person comes to the team and you need to give them something to read for a couple days to get up to speed. It's also a good way to make a reference, functional reference, so you can look things up later on if you want to. So that's this PDF format. So let me see. You can do the same thing. Project, generate PHP Doc. We'll use the same outputs. Debug demo and HTML class. But we'll switch to HTML default. And we'll click on finish. I think that should still go out to my desktop, but it also brings it up in a browser here. So it'll show you exactly where it is. It is on my desktop. That's where I told it to go. But now the same output is in HTML format, and again it links. Has a little bit of a layout difference. So let's see what. Here's my classes. My class is HTML. Here's my anchor tag and so on. Here's anchor on. I click on that. It goes into the detail. I'm not seeing the author tag here. So some tags might be not displayed in this format. But here's another tip that you see is it tells you what line of code it's on within the file that it came from. So that's handy as well. So are there any questions on PHP Doc? Okay, if not, we'll go on to the next topic. Again, like I said, this is just going to be a jumping around of different topics and trying to get the best examples of different tips and tricks on how to use Zen Studio. So the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of a add-on to project management, and it's called working sets. So a working set is really just a subset or a collection of files that you might be working on. In our examples here we have two projects, class code and example project, and right now I am using a working set. If I delete the working set, you'll see that all the projects that I have defined within this workspace show up even though they're closed. So under this little menu here, under the arrow of the Project Explorer, we have a select working set, and I already have 2 or 3, well 4 here predefined. So if I want to select a working set, that's how you change the ones that you're working on. So here's my example project working set, and I want to edit it. It'll show you, here's the name of it, and here's what's being included in it. So I'm picking a few things from class code, and I'm picking a few things from example project. So really all it is a filter. Now you can even get down to the file level. So if you don't want to see sample code PHP and you don't want to see new file in your list, you know there's no problems with them, you're not working on them, you want to get them out of the way, away from the clutter, then you can select them that way. If I say OK, my Project Explorer window cleans itself up, and those files that I filtered away are not there anymore. So I can really reduce what I'm looking at and save some clutter here. So if I can edit the active working set, I can pick all my files within class code, all my files within example project again, and then the other files come back. So that's working sets, and it's a neat way to reduce, like I say, the clutter or multiple files in a certain project if you're only working on one section of or groupings of files. Some more things just to be aware of in project-based area is if you go into right mouse on the project itself, you get a whole list of pop-up items. If you click on properties, you get a sub-window, and what I really wanted to point out here is project references. And you can see there's a whole bunch of different elements or entities related to projects. But this is the one I wanted to focus on here. This is the project reference, and we'll see its value here in a minute. What we're doing here is connecting projects and libraries. So if you have functions or classes in another project, like I have here in my class code, that I want to bring in or use in this example project, then I can just make this selection and say OK, and it becomes aware of, one project becomes aware of the contents of another. So if I delete, well, let's go into class code here and find a method that's not in so raw text. So here's just a method that outputs raw text in a collection of span tags, but inside HTML class I don't have raw text. So this will be my proof that if I go into debug demo and I start using if I require these codes, class code.php, that's making a reference to the other project. I instantiate the class, and then I just start typing my class and start typing r.w. It'll pick up the method definition from the other project. It will offer me any kind of comments that are associated with it. Also notice that the parameters are listed there in the pop-up box, and that's being picked up from the PHP Doc that we've predefined for it, and the code file itself, and any documentation that is connected to it. So if we go back to class code and we look at raw text, we can see that it does have PHP Doc text connected to it, and that's also being used within the pop-ups that I talked about here before. So if you click on that, it'll finish the comment for you and give you the finish the method call for you, rather, and then give you the list of parameters that it's expecting. So that's very handy for coding purposes. So I'll just comment that back out. So that's working sets, and that's project properties. Another thing that if you ever notice, and just a little tip, if you ever notice that your syntax check isn't working, always just make sure that your file project is configured to have PHP support. So if you think something's not responding properly, or you've imported a file or a project that doesn't Studio hasn't picked up as a PHP project, you can add support to it, and it'll start doing its syntax checking and so on. As you can see also in this pop-up list, there's a few other things you can do with configuring projects. You can add jQuery support and Dojo and JavaScript support and so on. So be sure and explore those as ways of code support and syntax checking. I also mentioned there the outline view, so we're going to spend a little more time in this. So if I go into back to my class code file, you can see on the outline view that all the methods within this particular class, we can collapse it if we want. There's only one in this file. But all the methods are listed here, and they're currently in alphabetical order. What you can do is if you click on the method name itself, anywhere in this list, it will take you in the editor to the line where that method is defined. You can turn off the alphabetical ordering, and it will just put you into the order in which they are coded and defined. So image tag here is somewhere in the middle, and if you want to sort it alphabetically, oddly enough, it stays somewhere in the middle. So that's the outline view. Also, if you click on the elements itself, the properties of the class, it will take you to that area as well. Notice here, I don't know if you can see that's a little small maybe, but on the constructor method it has a little different icon showing you that it is in fact the construct method of that class. If we go back to now some other code that just has functions in it, you can see the outline display also goes back and picks up those functions as well. So it works for functions as well as classes. So any questions there on the outline view rather? All right, so we're jumping around now to another topic. This is, we don't have the views open right now, but it'll just take me a second to open them. If you were in my other class a couple days ago, we showed about, first day actually, we talked about the task list, how you can show views. Where's the task view? Of different views, different tasks that you might want to assign to yourself. And they are triggered by a double slash and a capital TODO, like something to do. You can finish this code next week, for example. Save the file, and it shows up in your task list. Now that's really just a simple bookmark kind of way to do task management. But Studio has another, I'll just leave that in there. Studio has another view that is very helpful. And I had a whole class. There's enough material in this for an entire class, but I'm just going to show you a little bit of it. So it's called the task list, and that's different from task. So here is a task list. I'm just going to make this a little bigger here so you can see it. And right now it's uncategorized. So I have a new task I was setting up a little bit last night. But what this does, and maybe I can show you this, is it ties into repositories, task repositories, and bug repositories. So if you've heard of Bugzilla, that's one type of bug tracking web interface that it can tie into. I don't have it all set up right now for this, but you can also set up more connectors. So I'll just show you this. That Mylin, it's called Mylin, and Mylin has all these additional task and change management interface repositories that it can connect to. So if you are tracking your information and your bugs in any of these ways, then you can certainly tie in Mylin to it. So here's Jira, for example. There's a neat way to connect to there. There's Mantis, some of these other ones you may have heard of. There's Jenkins information here as well. So there's lots of different ways to connect the task list. So behind the scenes, there's many repositories you can connect to, and all through this one task list view. But I'm just going to show you today that it also has a task area within its local environment. So if I want to add a new task to myself, my own local environment, I just say local and finish. I get a new window here opening up, and you see down below a new task shows up in my task list. So I will say testing of class code as my new task. We save it here with the same save icon or Control S. Now my icon, my description is updated as well. Any notes can go in here, and you can schedule the task for its completion. So we could say this has to be done by Monday, and we can put an estimate of 5 hours on it, for example. It shows you again, we have to save all this information. So what it is showing you is, here's a few more attributes. It's uncategorized. If there's a URL connected to this task, you can connect it there as well. And if it ever gets completed, the complete date will show up beside it as well. Now that's not all. So the neat thing about this is the context. So right now what we have is no context because we haven't turned on the task. So you see this little blue dot. If you hover over that, it will say activate the task. So as soon as you activate the task, any code files that you have open at the time, you can see in the background here I have, of the editor, I have debug demo class code and HTML class.inc all open. When I activate this task, and I go into these files, my context is picked up. So any files that I'm working on during the task being turned on is picked up in the context tag. Then, even if I close the file, since I had any access to it at any point, it will show up in this list. I can save my task. It's already saved. I mean, it's saving as it's turned on. So now all I have to do is turn this off. Same as to deactivate the task. My editor area disappears. It cleans itself up. The next day or 2 days later or whenever I come back to this task, if I open the task, I see what I was working on. I can look at my context. I can open individual files just by clicking on them. Or if I reactivate the task, all the associated files related to that context are opened for me automatically. So as you can see, this is a kind of a activated, inactivated working set, so to speak. It's along the same concepts as a working set, but it's very handy. So now you can, with the task activated, you can go back to the private area. You can say that it's complete if you want to. Save it. My completion date shows up. I can turn it off. Again, my area cleans out. Notice down in the list here now, though, that since I've completed the task, it's crossed out. And over on the right side, I have this list of, I can hide completed, this icon rather, that I can click with a check mark crossed out. I can click on that and I can hide my completed tasks. So now it's cleaned out off of my active list of things to do. So are there any questions on that? Again, like I said, once you tie in with Bugzilla or anything, any of these kind of tasks, there's a lot more information shows up here because of the tie-in, like who it's assigned to and so on. And you can connect and refresh from the repository, Bugzilla repository, or any other repository that you're connected to through the activation and inactivation of the tasks. So even though this is completed, I can still turn the task on. As soon as I turn it on, it becomes incomplete again because I've turned it back on, meaning that there's more work to be done on it. But it still has a complete status. One other thing is, if you noticed, while I'm working on this particular task, all my other files are gone from the project list. And by gone, I just mean not showing on the list. So now I've inactivated that task. My project shows up again. All my files are here. If I reactivate the task, the project list is reduced again to that list of anything that was in the context. This can be turned on and off in the Project Explorer by this little grouping of 3 balls here. They look like 3 cannonballs. It says, if you hover over it, it says focus on active task. So if you turn that off, you get your full listing of files. So if you want to open another file, that should become part of the context now since it's turned on, and it is. And then if I refocus on that, my short list is up to date as well. So that's a way to save and get back to your projects through task management. So again, the view is task list. It's different from the task view, totally different than the task view. So one other thing I wanted to show you, and this is more along the lines of HTML editing, it's the properties view. So if you open up and view properties, it may not be on the short list. So here it is under general. When you go open view other, and it's properties view. Now this helps you quite a bit with HTML and their attribute tags. So here I just have an HTML file open with a simple body tag, and as you can see, as soon as I click on the body tag itself, all the attributes for this tag show up. Now if I start another tag, table tag for example, any of the table elements now show up in here as well. So I can align. Notice here though, if I switch anything in the properties view, it shows up in the code itself. So if I change my align to center, I press enter, my align center shows up in the tag itself. So you can go back and forth. I can align left if I want to, and you notice that left, it switches back. Where did that go? Oh, I moved away from the tag. There we go. So now it's left here aligned as well. So it's a two-way connection to editing HTML, and it's a neat way to see all the different tag elements that are available in each tag. So that's just a neat little tip if you're ever doing some HTML and you want to have it have the elements done properly. Also, if you pull down the arrow list on the particular tag, you can see what the options are. So if you pick on right and save it, again it changes up above. So I'll just save that and go back to debug demo. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you is just a few some simple things on how to make better use of the code editor itself. So as I showed you in with the properties of the project being connected, and if I instantiated this class, that the raw text method showed up as I was typing because of the project connection. The other things, there are other things. Once I click on raw text and bring it in, if I want to duplicate this code for another method call, I merely have to hit Control down arrow, and the line shows up. Of course, syntactically there was an issue there, a missing semicolon. But so Control down arrow. Now, if you're in Windows 7, that actually flips your whole. I don't know why that actually works, but it flips your whole display upside down. So what you have to do is go into Preferences and go into General and Keys. And what this does is here's your whole key mappings. So originally, I think duplication is Control-Shift down arrow or something, and I didn't want to have all those different combinations. So if I just looked at DUP in this short list, here's duplicate lines, and I switched it to Control down arrow. And you do that by going to the binding area, and so if I go Control-Shift-Z or something, I can affect the key combinations here for what that command will actually do. So if you get rid of this description here, this filter, you can see there's all kinds of different delete lines, export, and so on. So any of these key mappings, you'll certainly see a lot of shortcuts in here that you can bring up and use to your own advantage. Some of them you can see aren't even bound to key combinations, but it helps to show the category that you're in. So again, mine is I've set it to Control down arrow for line duplication, and that's a really quick way to duplicate your lines. Obviously, Control / will toggle the comment line. So if you want to quickly comment a line that you're working on, just go Control /. If you want to start a comment block, you go Control-Shift / and the 2-star comment block is begun for you. Another thing to see is Control space. Now, if I'm going to start with my SQL, and I go Control space, what it will bring is as you type MySQL, it's bringing up a list of possible functions. So if you hit Control space, it'll bring it up as you type as well. So just if there's nothing on the line, if you hit Control space, it'll bring up the list of all kinds of elements and things that you might want to select for your editing purposes. Another item is when you're when you're inside a function, let's go up to function row color. Okay, so this has an option of I. Maybe that's not a very good example. Let's go with this one here. Let's go find a class. Image. So image has a number of things here. functions. So if I go my class, and I'm just going to start my image tag, and I bring this in, and I've started typing more things in here. To bring back up the list of elements, to bring back up the list of properties that this method is looking for, you can hit Control, Shift, and space. And what that'll do is bring up the property elements, or parameter elements of the code method in this case, and what it's looking for. So it's tied into the class definition, and it knows what the attributes are. So as you can start typing, you can put information in. As you press comma, it goes to the next item in that list. So that parameter list will stay up there as long as you need it, or you can press escape and it's gone. So that's the ins and outs and kind of a scattered walk through Zen Studio for Eclipse. Are there any questions? That's all I have prepared for today. Like I said at the outset, it probably wouldn't fill up the whole hour, but I just wanted to show you the power of this code editor, and it's much, much more than a code editor. There's lots of things here that I haven't talked about. If you look at these different, you can tunnel to different servers. You can set up different servers. It can integrate in. You can open a browser and go to any website and just see what that looks like. So there's a lot of things here that I didn't touch on, but you'll certainly get to know them as you start using Zen Studio more and more. So are there any last minute questions before we end for the day? Again, I'm recording these sessions and sending them up to the Dropbox, and Vineet knows where those are, so he can share them with anyone later on. All right, no questions, so thank you for your time, and have a good week.